So, folks, we gotta talk about a guy named Graham Platner. Now, yeah, I'm sure everyone will be very normal about this segment for sure. But we do have to talk about it because effectively what has happened is that Janet Mills has dropped out of the race. It's now a race between Graham Platner and Susan Collins. There is no meaningful third party rising in this particular instance. And instead, we got Graham Platner, the guy who had a Nazi tattoo and got it covered when it became an issue for his campaign and claims ignorance of it. And then you got Susan Collins, who is a dyed-in-the-wool Republican who has sucked the life out of Mainers for the last 25 years. And realistically, the race is between Susan Collins and Graham Platner. I know that there are other candidates currently still in play. There's ranked choice voting, but none of them got a snowball's chance in hell against Graham Platner at the moment in the primary, let alone in the general. And that's kind of the problem. We got to be realistic about what the playing field is here, and they just aren't gonna pull it out. Graham Platner was blowing even Janet Mills out of the water, and Janet Mills was at least a known quantity in the state. The other candidates just aren't able to field the same amount of attention or field the same amount of influence. It just among not even among outside of the state of Maine, but among Maine voters. That one of the things that I found interesting was looking at some of the polling. So let's just take a quick look here, because also, can we just note real quick, Newsweek focus putting Kalshi front and center. We're not even looking at the polls first. They're oh, have you seen Kalshi's odds? This is bullshit. Do your jobs. Okay? But what is interesting here, what the prediction markets are signaling, fuck you guys, what individual polls show. Here we go. Emerson College, March 21st through 23rd, among 1,075 likely Maine voters, found Platner leading Collins in the general election 48% to 41%, with 11% undecided. Then you also have the Maine People's Resource Center poll, March 20th to 31st, surveying 1,167 likely Maine voters by phone and online. Platner in that poll performs almost 10% better, 9% better, I guess, with 12.4% undecided. Graham Platner is starting to bury Susan Collins in almost all of the polling right now. The closest that we can get, if we take a look at Real Clear Politics here, is Platner only being up by 4 points, but even that is from February. He has only grown his advantage with time. And I mean, it is what it is. We have to talk about him. We have to make sense of him on some level. Up until this point, my position has largely been, Maine's going to do what Maine's going to do when it comes to the primary. We've talked about the race a few times. But where we're at here is now Graham Platner, young, up-and-coming guy who seems to be incredibly relatable to the people of Maine. And then you have Susan Collins, who just today revealed that she has a medical diagnosis that is causing her to develop tremors, called essential tremors, because she's been shaking at public appearances, and people have been wondering what the hell is up with that. Part of the problem is here, there are a lot of people who are well, I don't support either of them, and that's fine. But we do need to understand when the dust settles here, what are we going to be left with? And we already know what we're going to be left with if it's Susan Collins. When the dust settles and it's Graham Platner, where does that leave us? And I think that there is, for a lot of people, what is kind of like their perceptions of Graham Platner have largely been, oh, former Blackwater mercenary, Nazi tattoo. Okay, all the pieces are sliding into place. And like, I can't blame people for that at all. I can't blame people for that at all. But we have a known quantity with Susan Collins that is complicit with fascism, that has actively aided and abetted the rise of the fascist movement here in the United States. And we do need to talk about what the alternative vision is coming out of Maine when it comes to Graham Platner. Because if he's currently running by margins of like, they're polling at margins of like 6, 7, 9% over Collins, his momentum seems to be in the he's gonna run away with it direction. Okay. And so I think we gotta talk about it. We gotta see what we're working with here. Okay. That domain, thank you so much for the raid. Welcome, folks. We're talking about Graham Platner, so hopefully everyone can be as normal as possible about this. But welcome in, make yourself cozy. Here we go. We're gonna take a look at this conversation that Graham Platner filmed and put up on his Graham Platner for Senate page. This is with him talking to a 3-time Trump voter, and I genuinely, I haven't watched this. I don't know where it goes. So let's dive into it. Let's see where we're at. What's this guy about?
I set out on this campaign, I was fully convinced that working people in this state have a lot more in common with each other than they might think. We often find ourselves surprised to realize that we have almost everything in common. And in the spirit of that, we're going to sit down this morning with a Republican voter from Machias and try to find out what we agree on.
Yeah, they asked me earlier, a minute ago, why I got into politics, or how long, if I'd always been involved in politics. I haven't. 10 years ago, Trump decided to run, and he spoke my language. And I voted for him again. I voted for him 3 times because
Jesus.
I wanted to see how he was going to continue, because I thought he was doing okay. And then this turn, I told my wife, I said, I'm going to vote for him this time, but he's got 1 year. He's not only not done what I thought he was going to do, he's gone not completely the opposite direction, but
Pretty far.
Yeah, he's gone pretty far beyond what, and it's not good for the country.
Right.
None of what he's done is good for the country, and that's what I wanted. I hate to say, I'm not going to say I was wrong, because I don't like to say I was wrong.
I do have to say I'm utterly fascinated by this guy's accent. It's like 4 or 5 different accents mashed together. I'm absolutely fascinated. Yeah, but it also, this guy is the ultimate recipient of the Fell for It Again award. You're gonna kick the football this time, buddy. Don't worry.
But I will admit, I'm questioning pretty hard on things.
Trump came along and told a lot of us that something that we knew to be true was actually true, which is that we live in a system that's stealing from us. And it's funny. I'm from Sullivan, so a lot of my friends are like 3-time Trump voters, and I didn't vote for Trump, but I very much understand why people did. And then I talk to friends of mine who don't live in Maine or don't live in rural areas, who are always just I don't get it. I'm like, man, everybody down here feels like they're getting robbed, and Trump came along and told us that, 1, you are getting robbed. Meanwhile, everybody else is telling us that everything's good. They're like, the system's great and we should protect it. And Trump's...
I do think that there is some truth to this, especially if you think about it, coming out of the Biden years, when every establishment Democrat was getting on television and saying, oh, the economy is great. Everything's great. It's so jobs are up. Everyone's employed. It's so good, right? What are you complaining about? The economy's booming. We're recovered after COVID. It's all good. And any of you who are actual working people know that that is not the case. It doesn't feel like things are fine. Like, rent keeps going up. Like, it keeps getting, like, harder and harder to make it out there. And, like, people feel that, you know? And so I do think that there is some truth about how alienating that democratic message that was deployed specifically to defend Joe Biden and defend Joe Biden's chances at re-election. That kind of gaslighting to the working American public, you know, whether we're talking about Maine or the Midwest or, you know, folks working on the factory floor, like, people knew that, like felt really alienated by that, you know?
Said the system is screwing you, because it is, and we all see it every single day. I was not surprised back in 2016, where I had friends of mine who were like, I either like Bernie Sanders or Donald Trump. And I know a lot of people who are like, that doesn't make any sense. I'm like, it makes sense to me. It does, in the sense that, like, it's because both of them were like, this whole thing is screwed up.
Blow it up.
Blow it up. Blow it up and do something different. And I think that was the message, and it's a compelling message, and one that, frankly, I think that, I mean, that's my message too. I mean, this thing is, in many ways, irreparably broken. And
Bernie's the reason why I really became 100% cynical, because in 2016,
yep.
well, both times, that's 2 times that he's been just tossed aside.
Yep.
He had the nomination and
agreed.
Just got replaced.
Yep.
I mean, like, it is, and I don't know to what degree this guy is indicative of, like, Trump voters everywhere, or if this guy's just indicative of a lot of, or a certain type of Trump voter in Maine. But, like, it is fascinating, right? Like, the attempts of the neoliberal establishment in the Democratic Party to suppress and destroy the left, in fact, also radicalize people to the right. Because it makes it very clear that, like, sane politics cannot be restored because these neoliberal power centers are going to crush you. These are most Trump voters in Maine. This might be why Graham Platner is doing so well, in particular. I know there are also there's a large population of independents in Maine, and guys like this might actually make up a sizable number of independents, or guys similar to this might make up a sizable number of independents in Maine.
Well, that's the powers that be refused to let him have it, and so they did what they do. They used their power. They didn't play by the rules. They didn't they didn't let it be a fair playing field. They had power. They used power to make sure that they could protect it, which really is kind of, if you think about it, that's the entire system at this point.
It is.
What's your health insurance situation?
I'm on my wife's.
Yeah. Okay.
Health insurance is horrible.
You really couldn't come up with a more inefficient way.
It's just
of
like
providing
everything
healthcare.
else. It's broken.
It's broken.
What did Ronald Reagan say? The 7 words. I'm from the government. I'm here to help. Yeah.
Well, the thing is, for me, is like until this last year, because this last year with the Republican budget cuts, it hit the VA pretty hard. But until this last year, my VA care has been spectacular. Like, I go up to Bangor, or I can do community care in Ellsworth for the small stuff, like going to the urgent care.
Yeah, like, what's crazy to me, right, is that these types of guys that make up a not insubstantial number of folks in Maine are over here, like, quoting fucking Ronald Reagan while also living with the systems handed down by Ronald Reagan, you know? But because of the media ecosystem a lot of folks live in, there's no clear line drawn from Ronald Reagan in their mind or in their areas of the country between Ronald Reagan and the situations they're in. That's not a message that they get presented with. That's not a like the causation that gets drawn. And it is interesting, right? Like, guys like this are made. They don't just happen. They're made by the systems we live in.
And stuff. And my VA care has been just, it was life-changing. Something feels weird.
Can't handle one politician you like losing, so you flip sides and help the people you know are worse. See, but I don't think I don't think these guys view it that way. They view it a different way, right? A lot of guys who think like this are essentially politically illiterate, and what they are doing is operating from a place of perceived self-interest, whether or not it's actually in their self-interest, right? But they're like, well, this Bernie Sanders guy would get me free healthcare, and that would really help me and my family out because the healthcare system is broken here. But we aren't going to get that Bernie Sanders, and Hillary Clinton is the literal devil, so, I'm going to take a chance on this Trump guy because, I know this devil, but I don't know that devil. And hey, maybe this rich businessman can make things better. And like, it's just, it might not seem rational, but it is how these guys think. Yeah, like it's an element of desperation, exactly.
I just call it my doctor.
Most Mainers view politics kind of like sports teams. Yeah, I mean, like a lot of it is vibes, right? A lot of it is vibes or loyalty, etc.
I'm like, hey, this hurts. And they're like, come on in. They do an x-ray, they take a look at it. And then I go, and we just take care of it. Things don't have to wait. I don't have to like set things off because I'm afraid that I have to pay for it. And to me, that was one of the things that really kind of changed my opinions on what well-run government programs can do.
I've never received a VA benefit.
Really?
I got out of the military.
Also, I was a conservative in 2016, wasn't free of parents' influence yet, and I couldn't bring myself to vote for Clinton or Trump. The Clinton hate runs deep in conservative circles. It really, really does. A lot of people kind of forget how deep that hate actually goes. Like it is genuinely, it had like 30 years to become like the normalized line in conservative politics.
I've never received a VA benefit.
Really?
I got out of the military in '86.
You've got an honorable discharge?
I got a general discharge.
A general, yeah. Really? Yeah, but geez, you've got a general that...
Last fall, because I am getting older, and I said last fall, I said, maybe I'll check into it. So I went to my local VA in Machias.
Yep.
And there's one woman that works there, and she gave me a phone number, and I said, so is this, she said, that's to a lawyer. And I said, what's the lawyer for? She goes, that's who you're going to have to go through to get your discharge upgraded. And I said, you kidding me, really?
Yeah.
A lawyer? I said, why not just go to why can't the VA do it?
So one of my best friends from Iraq, guy did 2 tours, did Fallujah Ramadi, a legitimate war hero. I've seen this guy do like actual heroism in combat. He smoked pot after we got back from our second deployment, popped on a test, got discharged out of the Marine Corps, kicked out, OTH, other than honorable, no benefits. He spent years just struggling. I mean, this is a guy who legitimately, is an actual war hero. And he didn't get a single shred of support from the VA. And it was all because the way that they write the rules. We wound up getting his discharge.
It's basically vibes till the leopards eat your face. But that's the thing, right? That's the thing. Vibes goes both ways, right? Vibes goes in the direction of conservatism. It also goes in the other direction. I gotta be honest with you, there's not an insubstantial number of people on the left or people in liberal circles who have gravitated that way because of the vibes. It's not because of rational thought or whatever. Like the vibes go both ways. And I do think that Graham Platner here, he's able to speak the vibes, as it were. in a way that I think is very useful in the Maine context. And I think that his politics might help him in some ways, but also in the places where they might hinder him reaching more conservative independence, his vibes are going to override that in a way that I think is going to serve him very well in this election, you know? The vibes for both sides suck. Well, the vibes for conservatives suck across the board. The vibes for, like, the left suck towards the liberals, but towards the left, they get better, you know? There's a certain element of justice and fairness, equality, brotherly love, and solidarity that I think helps the farther left you get. But you do have to get through the sea of neoliberal discontent, and that can be a bit tough.
Upgraded, but it took, like, myself and a couple other guys that we served with. We all kind of got together. We got a lawyer involved. We got this, and what was awful the whole time is being like, this shouldn't be complicated.
Right.
I mean, this guy has a combat record. Like, we can look through his service record book and his DD-214, and you can see that this guy did things for the nation in war. And yet somehow now we got a lawyer involved, and we did all this thing, and it worked in the end. But it was.
Does anyone know what a general discharge is? My understanding is that there are several different types of discharges. You have the honorable discharge, where you're still entitled to all of the benefits of, like, being a veteran. And then I believe there's a general discharge, and there might be a couple others, but then there's other than honorable discharge, which is basically, or dishonorable discharge, which preclude you from getting a lot of different benefits.
I mean, it was a multi-year process, and it was so frustrating. And that's something that, for me, like, one of the reasons I want to go to the U.S. Senate is that, having gone through these things personally and seen directly, like, what the bureaucratic problems are that keep people from getting it, I want to go up and write policy to make all this easier. I also want to...
Oh, a general discharge as you age out of the military? Gotcha.
Frankly, unleash, like, an army of social workers to go around the country and find vets who aren't getting the benefits they deserve, and then do the process for them. Because when people are working really hard or people are struggling, the idea that they're going to go home, sit down, and, like, figure out all this paperwork, but, like, hire a lawyer? I mean, if you're working paycheck to paycheck already, who's got the time? Like,
okay. So a general discharge means that you, like, maybe had a demerit on your records. You get most of the benefits, but not all of them, like the GI Bill. Gotcha.
The messiest is the all discharge.
An all whole discharge? It's true. That is the messiest.
Nobody has extra money to go hire an attorney. Yeah.
I mean, you're doing it in the evening when all the offices are closed.
What's up, man?
How goes the battle, bro?
It's going. How are you?
I'm good. I'm good. Off I go.
Oh, yeah. It's.
Do you support Social Security? I mean, for me to pay in my whole life and they tell me I get $1,100 back,
Yeah.
a month, is kind of insulting.
I think what we have to do is remove the cap on Social Security contributions.
Fuck
So
yeah.
right now,
Okay, I do gotta say, I do like hearing that from a politician. I do like hearing that from a politician. The number one thing that would make Social Security solvent for the entirety of our lives, our children's lives, our children's children's lives, is making sure that the wealthy are paying their fair share into Social Security. We should remove the cap. Absolutely.
every dollar over $176,000 of income that someone makes does not go in to Social Security contributions, which means that somebody making $25 million a year pays the exact same dollar amount into Social Security as somebody making $176,000 a year. Elon Musk pays his Social Security contributions within something like a minute and a half of the new year. If we remove the cap on Social Security and simply didn't even raise the rate, just kept it fair that everybody pays in the same percentage, we would be able to not just protect Social Security forever and all time, we'd be able to expand benefits, and we'd allow Americans to retire even a little bit earlier. There is absolutely no excuse for either children or the elderly in the state of Maine to go without heat, or to go without food, or to go without some kind of adequate housing.
We live in a rich country.
We live in the richest country in the history of the world.
Nobody should be hungry.
None whatsoever.
Or homeless. How do you feel about land monopolization?
I hate every amount of it.
He caught himself from swearing. I could hear it. I've trained in the Midwest eras of politeness. He caught himself from saying a swear word.
I despise the idea of any corporation, honestly, whether it's a private equity company out in New York or whether it's somebody in China. I hate the idea of any corporation buying up land in places that people live.
Or need to live.
I mean, the land should be owned by the people that live and work it, in my opinion. Like, that's it. Like that.
I agree.
And it's, no, I mean,
That man fucking agreed. Like, this is what I mean, right? Like, conservatives will straight up just, like, agree with you when you tell them socialist ideas, but you don't frame it as socialism, because, like, what's poisoned the well is, like, 50 years of, like, Fox News vibes, you know? You're right, comrade. Only those who work in the factory should have a say in how that factory is run. You'll get a fucking hell yeah from a lot of these types of conservatives, because, like, a lot of their conservatism is just vibes.
like, even here in Maine, we've got this problem right now. We've got it's insane, of either private equity firms or hedge funds or like international corporations, Chinese companies, buying up land in Maine. That should...
They will literally agree with whatever the last thing they heard is, though. That's it. That is everybody. Like, the secret that a lot of folks don't want to tell you is that people aren't as rational as they pretend to be. A lot of folks will simply just agree with the last person to present them with, like, the facsimile of a good idea.
Be legal.
Like, there's a place on Beals Island, it's a nonprofit.
Yep.
Right? They're buying up all the land. Well, on Beals Island, all the land is an island. It's coastal. It's all waterfront.
It's all waterfront taxable.
It's all waterfront, and they don't have to pay taxes on it. They're buying it, no taxes. Guess what's happening to the tax base on Beals Island?
Yep.
I mean, their taxes are exploding.
There is no rule in the Constitution that says we need to let corporations own our natural resources.
Sarah Huckabee Sanders in Arkansas is doing that.
Is putting those, yeah.
Oh yeah, she's already signed legislation that any Chinese entity that owns land in Arkansas, they have to sell it back.
Yep. I mean,
And Grant Platner's going to be like, well, I'll go a step further. I don't think any entity that doesn't live in that on that land shouldn't be able to buy it up like that as speculative asset. Shouldn't just be the Chinese. It should be fucking Wall Street investors that can't come in and buy that land.
I would go even further.
Hell yeah.
And it would be like basic corporate ownership, period.
Hell yeah.
I'm against the idea that like private corporations can start accruing so much of a public good, like land or water.
But they were complaining about Bill Gates owning 270,000 acres of farmland in the United States.
It's almost less about who owns it, and it's more about the fact that that kind of consolidated ownership can happen in the first place. Like, because I think that kind of consolidated ownership is legitimately bad for people.
Yes.
Because it winds up with folks. It winds up with one or two, or say a company being able to accrue an immense amount of power, which they can then use for their benefit. And the average person, they've got no input on that. It was a pleasure.
Good talking to you.
Yeah, you as well. Thank you so much for doing this.
You bet.
Yeah.
That was like that was really good. That was expertly done. He's genuinely incredibly good at this. And I thought it'd be nice to contrast this with him going into a very different kind of social encounter. I also, again, going into this blind, this is him on MS Now with Jen Psaki. Let's jump into this. He's talking about his strategy to potentially stop Donald Trump. Let's take a look here.
We are back with U.S. Senate candidate Graham Platner. So before the break, I was saying, you weren't the National Party's pick. For people out there,
that was Mr. Nazi Tattoo? Yes, this is Mr. Nazi Tattoo.
Wasn't the National Party's pick. Chuck Schumer recruited Janet Mills to run for this race. He quickly endorsed you today. Have you spoken to him today? And what's that relationship like right now?
Also, I do want to say, very fucking funny. Very funny that Chuck Schumer, after handpicking Janet Mills to run for this seat, bent the knee and endorsed Graham Platner. That is very fucking funny. And, of all the people who might be aroused right now, it's definitely Chuck Schumer.
People are aroused. I haven't seen people so aroused in a very, very long time.
Yes. No, we had a brief conversation this evening, and I'll just say that nothing brings people together like wanting to beat Susan Collins. So that's where we are.
But you're still not going to support him for leader, are you? Or have you changed your mind on that?
No, I mean, my criticisms of leadership, my criticisms of the party, they remain. I will say, I think that those criticisms...
I do have to say, the hat hair is not doing him favors on live television.
Those pale, I think, from their perspective, from the party leadership's perspective, in comparison to the need to take down Collins, because there is no Democratic majority in the Senate without getting rid of Collins. And I think that for everybody right now is the priority. Everything else, I guess we can have.
Ignoring the obvious controversy, that conversations is exactly what I'm talking about when I say marketing is more effective than compromising.
Oh, 10,000%. That lesson has been internalized to the entire Republican Party, right? Like, the Republican Party hasn't compromised on diddly shit for decades. In fact, they've just been pushing more and more and more extreme, right? It's not about it's not about compromising. It is just about marketing the message. It is about sticking to your principles and figuring out how to resonate them with your voters. That is the name of the game, I think that for a lot of people, again, kind of building off of like the vibes that we were talking about for politics, like the vibes when you compromise are that you are weak and easily manipulated. It makes you look terrible when you as a political candidate compromise your values or compromise your position. It makes you look weak, and people genuinely pick up on that, and it turns them off.
Hash that out later on, but at this point, the fight is against Collins, and we're all going to align and work together to that goal. But my criticisms of leadership absolutely remain the same.
Trump is obviously a factor in every race in the country. I mean, he's the sitting president. He's hugely unpopular. He started this hugely, not just unpopular, but to your point, it's not even a political issue, kind of immoral, misguided, not guided at all, war in Iran. How much of Trump is a factor in this general election against Susan Collins for you in Maine?
It's funny. We all understand that Donald Trump is uniquely awful, that Donald Trump really is kind of the avatar of the worst elements of our politics and our society. But I think a lot of people also understand that Trump is the symptom of a much deeper rot. I mean, Trump is the outcome of a system that for a long time now has been leaving working people, average, everyday Americans feel.
I do really want to hear more of this from Democrats running, because folks like Chuck Schumer, they tend to paint Donald Trump as an aberration, like a unique thing, like if we just get rid of Donald Trump, everything will go back to normal. And that's not the case, because Donald Trump is like the culmination of everything that has gone wrong. You don't get Donald Trump without everything having gone wrong, right? And more Democrats need to get up and say that, because when you formulate a world where Donald Trump is this unique evil, right? It means all you have to do is beat him, and then it's back to brunch. It's back to business as usual. You've fixed the evil. Everything is fine now. Liberals, go back to sleep. Go back to sleep. Don't do anything. It's fine. Shh. Shh. Let us take our money from big donors. Shh. And I like that he at least says, nah, I'm not going to retract any of my criticism of the establishment party leadership. And also Donald Trump is it comes about as a result of the systems that we had in place prior to this, Yeah, every Republican candidate for president in 2024 was at least as bad as Trump in 2016. Exactly. If you combine the coded racism of the Reagan era and the anti-intellectualism of the Bush era, you get Trump. Yeah. I feel like if you combine like a few of the other worst elements of like the Republican Party, you get Trump too. Like he's like the apotheosis of what it means to be a Republican, at least in 2026.
Feeling like their politics does not represent them at all. Like, I'll be upfront. I have a lot of friends who voted for Donald Trump. I live in rural Maine. I work on the water. I got friends who voted for Trump.
Yeah, exactly. It's all cake. If Trump is a unique evil, then there is no self-reflection needed. There's no introspection required, as you say. Like, it's like nothing was wrong with the system. The system was fine. We just have to defeat this evil and everything will be okay.
Times. And I can tell you, they voted for a change candidate. They wanted this whole thing to look different. They felt like they'd been left behind. And while, of course, Trump was not going to be the answer to that, that frustration remains because right-wing populism, Donald Trump's presidency, it hasn't fixed any of those problems that people had. In fact, it's made them worse. Prices have gone up. We are watching, at this point, just outright corruption in our political system. That's a thing that Americans see. They see it and they understand it for what it is. And we are going to continue to show people that it isn't just about beating Trump, although of course it is. It really is about building a political system that does not result in Donald Trump in the first place. It's building a political system that is accessible to people and that people can see themselves represented in. Because I'll be honest, as someone that was kind of living a very normal life until about a year ago, this political system as we have it, the average person does not see themselves reflected. We don't see our will. We don't see our material needs reflected in the halls of power. And that's really what we're engaged in. So when it comes to Collins, her inability, let me rephrase, her attempt to thread this needle where she is pro-Donald Trump enough to try to appease his loyalists, but also anti-Donald Trump enough to try to trick everybody else into...
And that's what I mean, right? Like, he's zeroing in on the thing that makes Susan Collins weak in Maine, right? He's on, like, MS Now. This is a national news, beat, right? But he's making this point for the people in his own state, for his own race, right? And it's because he's figured out the vibes of Maine. And he understands that pointing this out about Susan Collins is devastating to folks in Maine, because a lot of folks in Maine just, and I'm not an expert on Mainers by any means, but I know people in the Midwest, and I feel like there is a certain kinship between, rural farming communities in the Midwest and Maine. And that kinship is people value authenticity and honesty. Even if there is disagreement there is a sense of honor and pride in the truth, or at least being honest about who you are, right? There are no pretenses. It's just, I am what I am. People do not like the Susan Collins, let's try to be pro-Trump, but not fully pro-Trump, like, people look at that and they're like, you're compromising. We can tell you're inauthentic. The vibes are bad. We don't trust you. I think that Graham Platner has really honed in on this. It's what's made him so effective, I think.
Supporting her, that doesn't work now. That doesn't work in this era. And I think she's going to run up to the finite end of that kind of politics. And we're going to very much continue pointing out that she doesn't stand up to Donald Trump. She doesn't rein in his power. And his abuse of that power is making things materially worse day after day for the average American.
100% Mainers will often say hi to you, then ask you where you are from and to basically vibe check you. Yep.
Very concerned doesn't fly anymore, I don't think. They're clutching their pearls and very concerned. Let me ask you about some other aspect of this, and you alluded to this. I mean, you ran your campaign in part by running against Washington. This is a very effective thing for people to do out there right now. Washington is not exactly popular. Youth is also very popular. But you ran against, Washington, its inadequacies, and the failure of Democrats, too, to use power and think boldly enough. So if you're elected to the Senate, it's possible, I started the show talking about this, that you could be in the majority. How do you think power should be wielded if Democrats are given that, for people who are just getting to know you, try to figure you out there?
Well, first and foremost, I think we need to understand that the Democratic Party needs to form a theory of power. I don't think it's had one for a long time. It's had a theory of management. The Republican Party has, which is one of the reasons why we find ourselves in these straits. With a theory of power, you have to define the end state. What is the goal? What do you want to use your power in the service of? And then how are you going to craft the policies to get there? And more importantly, build the political will and the political power to make those policies a reality. Something we're going to have to do if we're the majority. We need to use the power we get to shut this White House down. We do that, I think one of the best ways is through committee hearings and investigations. I want the Trump administration not to function because everyone in the White House is being hauled under subpoena in front of a Senate committee day after day after day.
Yes. Genuinely, this should be made clear to the American public, to the voting public. If you vote Democrats into power, this is what we will do. We will completely lock down the White House's ability to rain the death, destruction, and terror upon all of you domestically. This should be the message.
Not just because, one, we have so many crimes to investigate. At this point, we can probably be doing this for the next 30 years. But two, because it's a lever of power. Using subpoena power, bringing people in for investigations, that keeps them busy. And that doesn't allow them to go start another stupid war. That doesn't allow them to continue to give billionaires more and more and more of our economy. And so I think it's very important that if we're in the majority, we're going to wield the power that we have to rein this thing in. I also think, and I'll just be upfront, I don't believe a single U.S. Democratic senator should vote for a nominee out of the Trump administration moving forward. I think we need to use all of the power we have around funding and the power of the purse to stop paying for these kinds of stupid wars, stop paying for agencies like ICE, stop paying for the things that the Trump administration is doing that are...
I think this makes sense, but I wonder about the efficacy of it if he's not, one, leader, and two, Dems do not take the majority in the Senate. But he's not talking about the Senate, because Democrats are very likely to take the House, and the House has the ability to issue subpoenas and, bring forth testimony, right? So Dems taking the House can do this.
Revolutionary War era rhetoric, stocks, and punishment. Put the officials in wooden stocks and have rotten fruit thrown at them by IMMS.
God, that would be really fucking cathartic. Thank you for the 2 tier 1 subs, Sake.
Materially hurting our democracy and hurting working people. But we need to get people into office who have a theory of power and who understand that the purpose of power isn't just to have it, it's to use it. It's to wield it, and in the service of a long-term goal. And I mean, honestly, that's not what we've been seeing for quite some time.
Graham Platner, so many more questions.
Are the Dems very likely to win the House even with the Voting Rights Act repealed? Yes, I believe so. And in the long term, Democrats are likely to have an edge in the gerrymandering, race. So it's a desperate attempt to try and win or maintain a slim majority after 2026, but I don't think they're going to be able to pull it off.
Call them loyalists to the crown and redcoats.
I mean, like, genuinely, we should keep talking about Donald Trump as a king or a dictator in derogatory terms. Like, we should be conflating Donald Trump with Mad King George. It should be we should be calling like conservatives redcoats. You know, as cringe as it might be, I think it might work.
But I got to get to other guests. Thank you. Actually, on cue, my next guest is Jack Smith's deputy who's running for Congress. So when we talk about investigations, it's a natural lead-in. Thank you for joining me tonight.
Perfect.
Thanks, Jen Psaki. I also took a quick look. I also took a quick look at the Jon Stewart program because Graham Platner went on Jon Stewart's show, or not show, but his podcast. Which is a show, but different kind of show. And there was a stretch of it that I thought might be interesting, because one of the things that I have had a difficult time coming to grips with is his past, not necessarily in the military, because I know a lot of folks who have been in the military. I know, folks who have become great leftists who are radicalized by their experience in the military. But the thing that I worry about is his politics, because after he did his tours, he then worked for Blackwater, right? And that, I think, I want to know kind of his political evolution specifically around that time. And I, again, I'm going into this blind, but Jon Stewart does ask him, like, how did you not fall into the alt-right pipeline? And I think that's a very fair question, given his background. You think Blackwater changed him? Well, his story is essentially that he was in the military. He left. He couldn't really find work. He was kind of lost, and he had PTSD, and he went back to the thing he knew, which was fighting. And he got a contract with Blackwater, and then after 6 months, he quit. And like that, he claims that the Blackwater is what radicalized him against these conservative ideas. So I want to know more about his political evolution. Jon Stewart seems to touch on that here. So let's jump into this, okay?
Why do you? So you just said something really interesting, which is angry young man back from fourth deployment, online, struggling. Why weren't you captured by the alt-right? Because boy, do you sound like their target audience to be captured by the anger of that movement. Because you're in the time frame. You have the experience of it. White guy, working class, angry vet, struggling to fit in. You are fertile soil, brother, for that kind of recruitment. Why do you think it didn't go that way?
One is because even in high school, I had some absolutely spectacular teachers who sort of opened my eyes up to, a criticism of the larger system that didn't require you to
Yes, Jon Stewart is kind of hot. That's true. He's no Sam Cedar, but Jon Stewart is kind of hot.
Look for scapegoats in other working people.
That's interesting. You didn't fall into the pronoun trap where you're like, they fucking pronoun people. I'm voting for Trump.
No, and also obviously I have two very loving parents who very much engendered in me this idea that you need to be open with other people and you need to be empathetic and compassionate. And I thank my lucky stars that I have two wonderful parents that did that. But I will say the other thing is when I got back, I I definitely, how do I put this? Like, I definitely was looking for like answers, and in that, you know, like
and a community,
hence why the internet, because I certainly wasn't getting it in the real world, but I was also going to college, and in school, I became friends with a number of people who had very, very, very different lived experiences than mine. And in doing that, I realized that the best thing for me to do is to like spend time around people who have had a totally different life than I have, and understand that their life, their lived experience is just as valid as mine. And that the more that I can one, open myself up to those people, and then also have them open up to me, the more I get to learn about the human experience, and the more I get to learn about, and it's really difficult to do that and also start thinking that you should like hate other people. I think in some ways it was those sort of, I had a good foundation, honestly.
Right. Well, it is, you know, the internet is so good at reducing things to 2 dimensions, whereas life is obviously you're living in 3, and from what I understand, sometimes 4. But, you know, I'm wondering if that world, did you understand its appeal? Because I imagine anybody who's a Marine or anybody who served in Iraq and Afghanistan knows those guys.
Oh, totally.
Hangs out with them.
Oh, Jon Stewart should absolutely not run for president. I don't think he'd make a good president. I think people saying Jon Stewart should run for president, they don't know what they're asking for, and I don't think they understand what they'd get. I love him as a television guy and the podcast guy.
Those guys. Loves those guys.
He's very much a liberal, but, you know, I'll take it.
Loves for other reasons other than some of their politics.
Totally.
But I also imagine you understand the siren song of exactly what you're saying. And were you cognizant of it when you were looking for community? And did you ever feel its pull in that way?
And I also got a lot of that in the Marine Corps. The Marine Corps is, I mean, if we're talking about like people want to be part of a community, having a purpose, feeling connected, and for young men, there's the whole like aggression and violence thing. Like I was the Marine Corps infantry. It doesn't get more.
White House press secretary or debate moderator for sure.
Oh, he would fucking nail being a debate moderator. 1000%.
Things than that.
As aggressive and violent. Yeah. That's the training.
And I also got to the end of it and realized that it didn't fill any holes in me. It didn't, in fact, it had left me more alone and more isolated than
it had left me with more holes.
Anyways. And so so for me, there was I did kind of already know that looking for more of that was not going to be the answer. I kind of got like the maximum version of that. Or the maximalist version of that, and it didn't work.
Right. You didn't need the alt-right. You were enlisted in it, so you had lived it.
Yeah, I mean, and don't be wrong. I mean, like, I will always be proud of. I love the Marine Corps. I'm very proud of being a Marine. I love the guys I served with still remain some of my closest friends. But it is definitely like it's a hyper masculine. Certainly, when I was in, it was all male. And like things that are virtues there are definitely not virtues in the normal world. And then I had to go out into the normal world, learn that the hard way. But then also the thing that actually made me happy was real community. Like the thing that actually ended up filling all the emptiness inside of me, it wasn't rage, it wasn't anger, it wasn't any of that stuff. It was literally like just spending time with other people in the place that I live and working with people on projects to improve all of our lives. And suddenly in all of that, I was like, oh man, I'm a legitimately happier person. I mean, I spent years like really, really disillusioned. And then I moved back to Maine, started working on the ocean, which has another big part. I mean, it's hard to not feel a sense of place when you're like on the sea, on your boat, looking at the seals and the eagles and like, you know, like
wait, what ocean? I'm in Jersey, man. What are you talking about?
Yeah. Maine's pretty, I mean, and that's one, I mean, amazing. I am so lucky to be where I'm from. I'm so lucky that my community, when I came home, really kind of wrapped its arms around me in some ways. And like, it allowed me to come back. Like I finally got to come home. And I was lucky enough that it actually is my home. It's the place
I mean, this is exactly the kind of thing we talk about, right? Like, this is the kind of thing that we talk about wanting to build. When we talk about getting involved in your local political scene, when we talk about showing up, when I talk about being known and knowing people in turn, this is what I mean. It is building that sense of community within the place that you live, that brings you in contact with others, that builds up a communal aspect, right? Because when you are alone, you are very easily destroyed. And the entire history of humanity has been, we come together and we're stronger, right? And so it makes perfect sense to me what he's saying here.
If Trump wants to be a king, then he needs a fitting title. Trump the terrible, Trump the deplorable, Trump the fraud, etc. We can workshop it.
We can workshop it. Exactly, PC Schwartz. Thank you for the $5 dono. But like, this is something that I think everybody needs. This is something that I think is fundamental to the socialist project, to the project of building a better world, a more equitable world, a more loving world, a kinder world. It is building that sense of community. It is finding peace, finding healing inside of our communities. Building that up is really, really important. It is, in fact, I would argue, the fundamental building block for any kind of effective long-term movement, right? As we go forward, like, it is the building block for any kind of functional democracy. It is the building block for any kind of workplace democracy. It is the building block through which we build the tools that will break our chains that currently hold us to the grindstone. You know, this is necessary to understand, and I think that for me, this makes a lot of sense. It makes sense to me that someone broken by war, someone who is lost, someone who is enlisted in Blackwater and come back completely disillusioned and not sure what the fuck to do with his life, he just starts going out on the boat. And he talks with his coworkers, his fellow fishermen. He starts building those connections, and those connections, in turn, provide him a lot of different answers, a lot of different ideas, a lot of different support that he could not have come up with on his own. And I think that that explains a lot about him as a person. Yeah, it's the development of critical consciousness or class consciousness. Yeah. It is, I think, the retaking of something fundamentally human, which is that we need each other. And that is something that capitalism has, for almost all of us, tried to bury or make it into something that's shameful. And it's not shameful to need other people. That's just human.
Was born and raised. That has a lot to do with it. But the big thing was like really just engaging with human beings and building that sense of like real in-person community. And it is challenging, right? Like human beings are still people.
Yeah, it's complicated.
So like, the thing to understand, like, it's never going to be perfect, but it is, I don't know how to say this. It like, in working with other people and connecting with other people in real life, not on the internet, but in real life, that is kind of what rebuilt all of my hope. And it's what rebuilt all of my positivity. And it was it was, and I didn't have any of that when I was looking for it on the internet. I didn't have any of it when I was really, I mean, like
I like that it's all cake. Finding community can help break down barriers you didn't know you had. And I do think that's true, right? Finding community puts you in contact with all kinds of different folks. And, you know, finding community can break down barriers of bigotry. It can break down preconceived notions based on race or gender. Like, I think that there's a lot to be said here for the healing power of community.
like the military kind of fills that hole for a little while when you're doing it, but the moment you leave it, it all goes away. And now you're alone. And so it doesn't actually fix it. It's not like a long-term sustainable version of community. And long-term sustainable community is the thing that like actually is, I mean, that's why I'm doing this.
But see, this is why, Graham, I feel like what's so different about what you're talking about is that it lacks the platitudes of somebody viewing something from above. You're viewing everything from within. You're talking about roots. You're talking about, I was adrift and I went back and I planted these roots in my community. And here's how I did it. And here's how I rebuilt my sense of self and my sense of purpose. It is a story grounded in lived experience. And I do think that, you know, it certainly resonates with me, even though my experience in the world is so different than yours because I can touch it. It feels really tangible to me. It feels really grounded in a kind of hierarchy of needs that I can grasp rather than cable news platitudinous nonsense.
Yeah.
And that is what is so missing from our politics.
It's also, this is the part that gets me. It's not how people interact. Like, I mean, like that's the thing that gets me about this whole experience. And like I always get the question, like from journalists, they're like, what do you think explains the fact that you, a random guy from Eastern Maine, is now like beating where, you know, I'm like up 40 points on a 2-term elected sitting governor. And you know, I'm polling far ahead of Susan Collins. I mean, and so they always call, they're like, how do you explain this? And I'm always like, you know, honestly, it's because.
Wait, what? I didn't hear that part.
Nonsense.
Yeah.
And that is what is so missing from our politics.
It's also, this is the part that gets me. It's not how people interact. Like, I mean, like that's the thing that gets me about this whole experience. And like
I don't think that he tried to say rape. I think that that's just the like closed captions doing him dirty there.
I always get the question, like from journalists, they're like, what do you think explains the fact that you, a random guy from Eastern Maine, is now
like let's just play it back one more time.
Experience and like I always get the question, like from journalists, they're like, what do you think explains the that gets me. It's not how people interact. Like, I mean, like
I think he was trying to say how regular people act, and then he like flubbed the word a little bit.
That's the thing that gets me about this whole experience. And like I always get the question, like from journalists, they're like, what do you think explains the fact that you, a random guy from Eastern Maine, is now like beating where, you know, I'm like up 40 points on a 2-term elected sitting governor, and you know, I'm polling far ahead of Susan Collins. I mean, and so
no, I mean, maybe he tried to say irate.
They always call. They're like, how do you explain this? And I'm always like, you know, honestly, it's because I think because I just like talk like a regular human being, and in many ways, I'm coming at this very much from like this space of just being down here in the real world and seeing what's going on, which is, and the other thing too is like, I also don't think that voters are, well, mostly because I am one too. Like, I don't think we're this like mass of people to be manipulated. right? Like in the Democratic Party is still really bad at this, by the way. There's still this like idea that we got to like, there's like these magic words. We're like, oh, we didn't use the magic word last time that would have made people think we
affordability,
give a shit about them without actually giving a shit. Like, you're like, nah, dude, people are smart. People, like, they don't like when they're being they don't like the magic words. They want you to say things like, no, we want you to have health care. That's why we have this universal health care policy.
And here's the plan that we have that's going to connect
here's the plan.
The money we're talking about to the value you might receive.
Yes, this man did have a Nazi tattoo, though he did post a video of himself getting it covered. So, that being said, he is also the front runner for the Democratic nomination and currently polling ahead of the Republican who has held the seat for the last 20 years. So we do need to know more about him.
You know, the frustration with the Democratic Party is always kind of this, which what they'll say is this: the strategy is authenticity. And you're like, right, that's not a strategy.
That's not a strategy.
That's just
that's just honesty.
The thing. And then you can smell the thing that really rubs me the wrong way is you can smell the meeting on them when they talk. The meeting where they went, Donald Trump's resonating with them because he curses sometimes. So the next day, Chuck Schumer is out there.
Hey, Alan Smith.
I will fucking pass this. And you're like, you smell the marketing, you smell the strategy, you smell the PR on them almost at all times.
Yeah.
Has there been any connection, Graham? Have they, look, the Democratic establishment has certainly put their Kalshi money and their Polymarket money on Janet Mills. And that, have you felt any sense of any curiosity? Has there been any, hey, Graham, I'm a more establishment guy. You seem to be resonating. What do you think is going on? Or do they view you again through the prism of...
Yeah, look, I've already talked about the Nazi tattoo thing. I'm not interested in talking about it more. If you want my take on it, you can watch my older videos on it.
Insurgent. This insurgent must be stopped.
As of late, past few months, there's been a lot more reach out from like individual people, kind of in the, like senators, honestly. I think there are a lot of senators. Now, there are a bunch of senators like Bernie, Elizabeth Warren, Chris Van Hollen, that whole crew who, Martin Heinrich in New Mexico, who like
you cannot get a Nazi tat without it being from a Nazi. You can't just ask for that shit. I mean, I think if you know more about Croatia, you absolutely could, on a drunken bender as a Marine in Croatia, get something really fucking sus tattooed on you. And I get it. I think it's really I think it's weird that he had it for such a long time, and maybe he did know that it was a Nazi tattoo prior to this. I don't know. But frankly, I think where we're at is just, this is the guy who is currently projected to beat Susan Collins. We got to know about him. We got to know about his positions. That's it. So the Nazi tattoo, yeah, that's fucking weird. But I want to know what positions he's bringing to the actual, like, party, What positions is he actually going to have as an elected official if he wins the election? And I think that's important. And I think understanding where he's coming from is important. I think that's an important aspect to dive into. Position is Nazi spy? No, it's very clearly not. And if you are in this camp where you're like, well, see, he's a secret Nazi spy, we've got an actual honest-to-God fascist in that spot right now. Like, Susan Collins is openly voting alongside fascists right now. Susan Collins is getting ICE detention centers, ICE concentration camps built in her state right fucking now. People are being systematically denied health care in those facilities, dying in them right now. So the question is that I'm actually interested in is what is Graham Platner messaging about? Because I got something to tell you guys, and I think that this is something everyone needs to hear and understand. You are never going to be able to read the contents of any other person's heart. The only heart you know is your own, okay? And as far as politicians go, what are politicians? If you think that politicians are a manifestation of your internal heart, your values, it's a self-expression of you to vote, then you just don't understand politics. Because that's not what politics is. Politics is not like a glorious act of self-expression. Politics is a tool. It's fucking utility. That's it. Full stop. Politicians are tools. Will this tool help us to get us where we want to go? That's the only question I personally care about. Will this tool help us, or will it hurt us? But that is the case when we're talking about, someone like Graham Platner. It is also the case when we're talking about someone like Hakeem Jeffries or Chuck Schumer or Bernie Sanders. This isn't a unique case. All politics is an act of utility for will this person bring us as a country closer to where we want to go. That's it. Full stop. You are not going to be able to read the contents of any politician's heart. For all we know, Bernie Sanders goes home every night and just thinks horrible racist thoughts. I don't know. But what I do know is that he, as a politician, as a tool, moves us in a positive direction towards a world I think is better. And I think that that is what matters. Because when we look at politics, we're not looking at an artistic rendering. What we're looking at is, hey, is this person going to push policies that allow people to live? Or is this person going to pass policies that get people killed? And right now, Susan Collins is voting actively in favor of policies that kill people. That kill immigrants, that kill people in detention centers, that kill people who are getting kicked off in the millions from our healthcare system. And that, I think, is way more important compared to how I feel about her individual heart. I don't care what's in Susan Collins' heart. I don't care if she's wringing her poor old hands about it. I don't care if she feels sad every day about what she's been forced to do. I care about the material impact that she is having. And for the record, I also care about what the material impact Graham Platner would have, which is why I have found it very interesting to explore the policy positions that he's putting forward, to explore the rhetoric, how he's reaching people, to explore how he has arrived at his various political beliefs. I think that's interesting. I think that's good. And I think that it informs us of what he will do, or might do, rather. And to the extent that he could be lying. Yeah, that's true. That's also every politician ever. So I guess where I'm at is just I want you all to understand where I'm coming from when it comes to politics. And where I'm coming from is from a place of utility. Bernie could very well look at Trump and think deep down, fuck, I would crack that. Oh, God. All right.
Reached out early on and have been big supporters really the whole time.
They felt a fellow progressive who they thought, okay, I understand where this fella's coming from.
Totally. So that's been going on since the beginning. Past couple months, though, there has been more reach out from, I would say, more kind of establishment folks. However, and this is the important part, not from the DSCC, not from the DNC, no.
Bernie would eat the right, but would Bernie eat ass? That's the real question.
Nobody in the places of power remains interested.
But they're lost, dude. Like
it's so bad.
They're lost.
And the thing that bothers me the most isn't like, I'm not asking for you to like be my friend. But you should be curious because I'm pulling 40 points ahead.
Right.
Like at least just reach out and be like, hey, what are you actually? Because they've never spoken ever. I've never gotten a phone call. Like no one's ever reached out. I've never talked to anybody in leadership. No one's ever been interested in which is like kind of baffling.
I think it's because they only know two stories. The two stories are this: you're either a moderate Democrat or you're a left-wing firebrand. And so what they're saying is, oh, sure, the left-wing firebrand, that does well in the primary, but that'll never travel. You know, there is that idea that, well, electability, and there's something crazy about this, as though you are the equivalent of you're the Democratic equivalent of a MAGA loyalist who has come out with wildly controversial positions. And then you talk to you for 5 minutes, you go, oh no, this is based in historical precedent. It has a very literate and literary foundation to it. It has a foundation of lived experience. Like they should be, again, viewing this as a Rosetta Stone that can help them translate. And here's the trick. And maybe this is what we can kind of talk about. And I'm cognizant of your time. And because
it's okay.
of your lived experience, your rural internet connection.
That's the issue, actually.
That is the issue. How do you translate that lived experience? You talked about it a little bit earlier, you know, being on the planning board and understanding that, sometimes the wording and the intention, you know, had unforeseen consequences and those kinds of things. How do we translate those experiences to create that new deal for a more modern America where we do get that value, where we do change the incentives of government, the way that money is spent? How do we make that transition?
This is honestly the hardest question to answer. And my answer is going to be insufficient. I'll just tell you that right off the bat. The answer to it is that we need to build political power through getting people like me into the U.S. Senate, into Congress, and we also need to do it while building organizational power outside of the system. There has never been a moment in American history where we've gotten good things just because the institutions or people in power decided to do it. They needed to be pressed. I mean, this is why this country has killed the labor movement. We did it on purpose. We did it because the labor movement is a foundation of power that can actually push back against the system. We need to, on our campaign, this is above all else, this is an organizing project because I firmly believe that while me getting elected to the U.S. Senate, that's a big part of it, but that needs to be in tandem with a fully organized, broad-based coalition here in the state of Maine.
I think that's about all we need to see at the moment for this purpose. Someone in chat mentioned where he stands on issues like trans rights, etc. Here's an article from them. Controversial Dem candidate Graham Platner says anti-trans attacks are invented culture war scare. GOP rhetoric against trans people aims to keep people divided. The anti-trans campaign in Maine is funded by an out-of-state billionaire to make sure that we have this discussion and we don't talk about raising his taxes, Platner told Slate, likely referring to Uline, whose primary residence is in Illinois. I think there are 2 trans kids that compete in high school sports in Maine. There are 40,000 Mainers who are going to lose their health care because of the attack on the Affordable Care Act extension. One of these things seems very important and real to me. One of them seems like an invented culture war scare to keep people divided. Platner went on to say he had wrestled with cisgender girls as a high school athlete, but there was no uproar. I'm sorry, I cannot take it seriously. Basically, he just straight up is nah, this is a bullshit issue. I, as a cisgender man, wrestled cisgender girls and nobody gave a shit. He is openly pro-LGBTQ. And like, I think he's right. Like, the conservative movement has manufactured the entirety of trans girls in sports. We know this. I've been talking about it for literal years since it first became an issue on the national scale. Like, the reason it got mainstreamed was because Christopher Rufo, who was pushing all of the, critical race theory nonsense, then created an entirely new wedge issue when it came to trans girls in high school sports. And then that rolled and rolled and snowballed, and now it's just like a global thing that conservatives talk about. And it's all bullshit to create busy work for conservatives to look like they are getting things done while actively fleecing their very working class base so that they can serve their donors instead. It's all fucking stupid. But they've decided that people like me are worth throwing under the bus so that, like, their donors can make more money. Story the Bard says, it's been a long time thing in Maine to have women in men's sports. I literally played high school football with a girl. Yo, that's cool as hell. I didn't know that. Cane Dog Lover says, I was on all boys teams except me my whole life. It was never an issue, and sometimes I was better than them. Hell yeah. Yeah, it's also like recycled anti-gay rhetoric from like the 90s and early aughts, you know? So I don't know. I understand the reticence when it comes to Platner, because I'm going to be honest, the Nazi tattoo thing, like, yeah, that's pretty fucking bad. But now we are in a situation where the field of candidates has effectively narrowed to Collins or this guy. And I think we all understand this guy a lot better having watched him do these separate appearances. And I think that that's important. I think it is important to understand him a bit. And I think that, like, understanding where he's coming from, understanding his positions, I think that's important. I think that, like, he has a very clear basis in building up genuine support. And I say that because I don't think that people who are looking to get big in politics as like a flash in the pan to do something else or to serve donors, they don't run campaigns like this. They just don't. They're way more dishonest. They're way more slippery. They speak with way more euphemisms, way more coded language. Like, and he's not doing that. I think that's worth noting. So I'm not saying he's a perfect candidate, but I am saying he could very well be a useful tool to achieve the kinds of ideas that I talk about on this program on a regular basis. Democratic democratic worker co-ops, postal banking, Medicare for all. These are things that I think he could be useful for all of us achieving on a national level. And I can tell you for certain one thing, and that's if Susan Collins gets into office, she is not going to do any of that. She is going to continue to fret and pretend to be horribly, horribly divided while signing away quietly all of your rights and freedoms until one day you get fed into the fucking corporate wood chipper that harvests your blood and various viscera. Like that, those are your options. Someone who would gleefully, cheerfully feed you into a wood chipper, or someone who at the very least is doing everything that one would expect someone who is trying to be genuine to do. You know, I'm not in Maine. I'm not going to be one who makes this choice, but like, it's good to know who's going to be sent to Congress, I guess. And in this particular case, Platner seems to have the juice behind him when it comes to the polls. So there we go, folks. That's where we are at with Platner. And yeah, I mean,
he turns out to be an actual Nazi, you boot him in 2 years.
I mean, that's the other thing, right? Like, if he does turn out to be full of shit, like, he's not going to stay in office. Like, the people who voted for him are going to be like, nah, this guy's full of shit. He's not getting another crack at it. And like, It's the same with Fetterman. Fetterman's not getting reelected. Like, Fetterman, his entire political career is done. Like, no one who worked to get him elected the first time is going to come back and do it a second time. Like, his campaign is basically limping along, and it hasn't, like, Fetterman hasn't even started yet. Well, this is all dependent on how Maine voters are. Well, remember what I told you about how Maine voters are like Midwestern rural voters, and how authenticity is a huge component of the trust that develops between people, right? If it turns out all of this is a lie and he's actually a fucking Nazi, they're going to kick him out of that seat. Like, they're not just going to be like, oh, he's a Nazi. Well, we're okay with that, because they don't fucking like being lied to. Very few people do, by the way, just as an FYI. Like, I don't know. Like, people in Maine do have critical thinking skills here, guys. Fetterman could become a Republican. He basically is one. Republicans aren't going to vote for Fetterman. He's got too much stank on him. So anyway, that's what we got. And we need folks to organize. We need folks to organize in every part of this nation so that, hey, guess what? If you're not happy with a Platner type candidate, organize so that you can get a better one, okay? Organize so that you can get people who are effective tools to further leftist policy, because that is what we need. We need as many tools as we can get, folks. So join your local Dems, join your local DSA, make your Dems more progressive, make your DSA more effective. We need to be pushing that shit. Because the only way we get out of this fascist hole we've all fallen into together, the only way we get out is by organizing and working together. That's it. Full stop. We are in an era where the Voting Rights Act has been gutted. We are in an era where our democracy is being torn apart by fascists who have control over both houses of Congress and also the presidency and the Supreme Court of the United States. We are in a crisis. And the only way we get out of that crisis is by organizing, and is by moving farther left, and is by, like, making potentially unlikely allies when it comes to moving forward a political movement that is going to hold these fascists accountable and get a measure of justice and make a better world from the ashes that they have created. That is our next step. But the first step that we all have to take is to organize and actually show up to the goddamn meetings. So all that being said, folks, join your local Dems, join your local DSA. If you need help doing that, if you don't know where to start, join our Discord, reach out to Gamergy for help with your local DSA, reach out to Dragonfly for help with your local Dems. We can help you get started and get involved, okay? And also, if you got anything out of this, hit the like button, subscribe, leave a comment. Comments longer than 8 words really help in the algorithm for whatever reason. And all that being said, check out ImogeneOlivia.com, gender euphoric lingerie designed from the ground up for trans femmes, also tested with cis men, cis women, non-binary folks. It is sexy lingerie that is non-tuck, and also it fits. Go check it out, ImogeneOlivia.com, link down in the description, and let's keep on going.
Riverboat Jack is coming to town. All the viewers gather around. Twitch and YouTube and switchy streams. All that content is bursting the scenes. Politics, Bane, and plenty more. Your sense of fashion you'll adore. So grab your stuff and hop aboard. We're going straight to Jack's